Greetings, my good bitches. The name's Francis, QueenCokeFrancis. I'm an editor, Twitch streamer, drag artist, and I'm here because signs up, games down, LA is a union town. That's right, the threat of AI replacing human talent has still not gone away, and actors are on strike. Once again, I guess big video game companies have to protect their private yacht budgets too. Oh god, please don't eat me, Todd Howard. But if there was one actor that could never be replaced by AI, it was Shelley Duvall. Now, you Zoomers might know her from
Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall.
But if you're a fancy, cultured boy like me, you'll know her as one of the most endearing talents of the 20th century. From the art house films of the 70s to Disney's Popeye, from the Overlook Hotel to fairy tale theater, Duvall was beloved and also horribly disrespected. This is yet another case of an artist who got dicked over by society, and then society waited until that artist was dead for everyone to be like, oh my god, it's so sad, tribute, tribute, tribute. But unlike Sinead O'Connor and Paul Rubens, be sure to check out my video about them as well, Shelley did not get dicked over for being a radical boundary pusher. She didn't tear up a picture of the Pope or go against gender norms and get frisky in an adult theater. No, Shelley Duvall's crime was simply being a really nice person. She died this past July due to complications from diabetes, and her death has given me cause to reflect on how often we take advantage of people's kindness. And yes, there is going to be a tiny self-call out later in the video, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But before we get into it, if you are a fan of watching a very tired drag queen talk about nerd shit forever, I ask that you please get cast in a big budget horror film. When your director yells at you for not giving him what he wants after 127 takes, instead of taking any more of his macho bullshit, whack him over the head with a baseball bat, then stand over him and unzip your pants and dick slap those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. Shelley Duvall could be considered to be one of cinema's original manic pixie dream girls, though that is a gross reduction. Born and raised in Texas, Shelley was an energetic, quirky child who was actually nicknamed Manic Mouse by her mother, but she never actually planned on being a performer. Girlie wanted to be a scientist, and as a young woman, she attended the South Texas Junior College majoring in nutrition and diet therapy. It was only after a chance encounter with Robert Altman that an acting career had actually entered the picture. Altman was fascinated with Shelley's upbeat energy, her big eyes, and her long, lanky body. He asked her if she would leave Texas to come to Hollywood and play a supporting role in his upcoming film. Shelley was still a student at the time. She had no interest in being an actress. She hadn't even left Texas, so she turned down the offer. But Altman would not stop pestering her. As Shelley put it,
I got tired of arguing and thought maybe I am an actress.
This was the first and certainly not the last time Shelley would lose an argument with a director. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that Robert Altman was also a perfectionist dickhead like Stanley Kubrick was. In fact, Shelley and Altman would actually go on to be great friends and make 7 movies together. I'm just pointing out how at many significant points in her life, Shelley just wanted to be left alone, and powerful men would not leave her alone. We'll get into this later. After appearing in Brewster, McCloud, McCabe, and Mrs. Miller, and Thieves Like Us, Shelley's breakthrough came in 1975 with Nashville, her 4th collaboration with Robert Altman.
Shelley Duvall is the wide-eyed groupie doing what all groupies do so well.
It was a small part in a massive ensemble cast, but once you saw this fit, you never forgot her. The fit did not have to go this hard. It eats, as the kids say. The film was an indie darling, going on to win the hearts of critics and audiences alike. And so did Shelley, who quickly went on to appear in the classic rom-com Annie Hall, directed by Name Redacted. That same year, she hosted SNL, dated Paul Simon, and earned critical acclaim for her lead role in Robert Altman's 3 Women, even winning Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival. If you haven't seen 3 Women, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a very weird, psychological, surreal real horror drama. Like, imagine if Ingmar Bergman went to a desert town in California and made his version of Single White Female. Now that I have your attention, Shelley plays Millie, a woman who tries to be clean and sophisticated and modern and perfect so that people will like her. She reads all the right magazines, she wears all the right dresses, she decorates her apartment just right, but none of her neighbors or coworkers seem all that interested in her. And then she takes in a new roommate, this very creepy, childlike woman named Pinky, played by Sissy Spacek, who worships the ground Millie walks on. Their relationship evolves into something very strange and sinister. The power dynamic between them shifts, their identities start to merge, and anyway, the ending is very ambiguous, and I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it yet. It's an enigmatic movie anchored by Shelley's grounded, relatable humanity. Because she's the lead, she's given a lot more to do than she had in previous films. She's an active protagonist who gets to move the plot forward. She gets to be warm and sensual and humorous and pitiful and angry. Oh, and she wrote most of her own dialogue for the movie. You know, just queen shit. Shelley brought an easy, unpretentious naturalism to everything she did. She had never trained to be an actor, she never took herself too seriously, and she enjoyed giving the audience something with which they could identify. She was unself-conscious, she was subtle, and she was just, nice. Like, just a really nice person. No one who worked with her ever had a bad thing to say about her. To quote her frequent co-star Keith Carradine,
"There was something slightly off-center and hauntingly beautiful about her. And then she had that extraordinary personality. She was quirky and just utterly enchanting. What you saw on screen, that's just who she was."
And Robert Altman had this to say,
"She was able to swing all sides of the pendulum. Charming, silly, sophisticated, pathetic, even beautiful."
Even beautiful? Motherfucker, do you have eyes? Yeah, you'll notice that even in these early years, people would be kind of underhanded with their compliments to Shelley, with a lot of critics calling her awkward because of her thinness and her overbite. The thing is, though, Shelley's career took off during a time that those cinephile eggheads like to refer to as the New Hollywood. In the late 1960s, big studios experienced major economic losses, and the motion picture production code had broken down. Independent films were on the rise, and audiences had a new appetite for gritty, realistic films that didn't have the traditional movie star look. Gone were the perfectly symmetrical faces of Doris Day and Elizabeth Taylor. People wanted to see real, everyday humans on screen, and that's what Shelley gave them, a real human being. And then came Stanley Kubrick. In 1979, Shelley was cast in Kubrick's horror masterpiece, The Shining. Kubrick told Shelley that he liked her performance in Three Women, and that he, quote, liked the way she cried. And Jesus Christ on a tiny bike, Shelley would be doing a lot of crying in this production. Which brings me to that self-call-out that I promised in the beginning. In my video where I go through Roseanne Barr's memoir, I made this very dark joke. So we're gonna break this bad boy down like Shelley Duvall's spirit on the set of The Shining, and yeah, that joke could have been constructed better. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I have a very dark sense of humor. I truly believe that we have to laugh at the horrors of life so that we don't cry. But my intention was not to punch down on Shelley or make light of her trauma. I don't think her pain is funny at all. I think Stanley Kubrick and his cruel attitude towards his actors deserves mockery. But some people took it as a mean joke at Shelley's expense, and I understand why. Because ultimately, her name and her broken spirit are the punchline of that joke, not Kubrick's assholism. And for that, I'm sorry. Even though no hurt or malice was intended, I still take full accountability for that. So let me offer a revision. If I was gonna write it again, I might say it like, I'm gonna break this down the way Stanley Kubrick breaks his actors. That any better? I really don't want to go back to small creator limbo, but that is technically a more accurate statement because Kubrick was notoriously hard on his casts and crews. The script for The Shining changed so many times that Jack Nicholson just straight up stopped reading the new drafts. And Shelley herself stated that Kubrick, quote,
Doesn't print anything until at least the 35th take.
Speaking as someone who did go to film school and worked on many sets in many many different positions, that shit is rough on everyone. Now, there are a lot of conflicting stories regarding the abuse that Shelley endured on the set of The Shining, and a lot of them are either false or greatly exaggerated. In truth, it was complicated. A combination of 56 weeks of shooting, intense method acting, and Kubrick's chronic perfectionism that often clouded his better judgment. So the thing about method acting is a lot of people assume that it's just the crazy shit that Daniel Day-Lewis puts himself through for months or years to prepare for a role, but that is strictly an extreme form of the practice. Method acting is simply recalling an experience that's similar to the one you are acting in, and all the sensory memories that went with it, like touch, taste, smell, you get it. I've taken method acting classes, and let me tell you, they can be intense. There were actually times where I had to run to the bathroom so that nobody would see me crying as much as I was going to. I had visceral memories of these exercises while writing this very script, and depending on your role, you have to be brave enough to go to some really dark places that you would normally aggressively avoid. So when Shelley played the role of Wendy Torrance, a disheveled housewife living in a constant state of hysteria and anxiety, having to cry for 12 hours a day for 5 to 6 days at a time for 56 weeks, I can only imagine the toll this must have taken on her physically and emotionally. Actually, I don't really have to imagine it, because she talked about it.
I would listen to sad songs, or you just think about something very sad in your life, or how much you miss your family or friends. But after a while, your body rebels. It says, stop doing this to me. I don't want to cry every day. And sometimes just that thought alone would make me cry. To wake up on a Monday morning so early and realize that you had to cry all day because it was scheduled, I would just start crying. I'd be like, oh no, I can't. And yet I did it. I don't know how I did it. Jack said that to me too. He said, I don't know how you do it.
And even though Kubrick was allegedly rough on everyone, it was apparent to all who witnessed it that Shelley was mistreated the worst by far. She and Kubrick would frequently argue, and Kubrick would intentionally isolate her and make her endure nearly unbearable shoots. Our almighty Queen Angelica Houston, who was dating Jack Nicholson at the time, reported that both Kubrick and Nicholson were very aware of how exhausted and tortured Shelley felt and showed no sympathy whatsoever. As my button dick slap gag noted earlier, Kubrick would go on to win a Guinness World Record for shooting 127 dick slapping takes of the famous baseball bat staircase scene. It's still considered to be one of the most iconic horror scenes of all time, largely in part to the incredible performances from Jack and Shelley. But at this point, Shelley wasn't even really acting. Her eyes were already red and swollen from having to cry all the time, and her hands were raw and calloused from having to swing that bat 127 dick slapping times. Was that scene perfect? Yes. 1,000 times yes. But was it worth, and I cannot possibly stress this enough, Lord Baby Jesus in heaven, 127 dick slapping takes? No. And it's hard to imagine a reason as to why Kubrick would do this other than blatant antagonization. Again, it's hard on everyone involved, but especially hard on Shelley. At the same time, sometimes she and Kubrick would play chess together during breaks. And in an interview in 2001, Shelley actually spoke very highly of him and apparently held no ill will towards him.
I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. Why? Because of Stanley. And it was a fascinating learning experience, but I wouldn't want to go through it again.
At the same time, Shelley also mentioned that Kubrick has, quote,
a streak of cruelty.
That's, putting it very kindly, but these were words from a truly kind person. Even though her performance received rightfully positive reviews, she was somehow still nominated for Worst Actress at the Golden Raspberries inaugural ceremony. Really, Mary? This was later rescinded in 2022, and the co-founder of the Raspberry stated that she regretted nominating Shelley in the first place. And I can't help but be reminded that the same thing happened to Jennifer Lawrence for her amazing performance in Mother. Shelley did earn the title of a Scream Queen, which I do consider to be a very big honor. But in truth, she was so much more than that. As Bill Jabiri wrote for Vulture, looking into Duvall's huge eyes from the front row of a theater, I found myself riveted by a very poignant form of fear. Not the fear of an actor out of her element, or the more mundane fear of a victim being chased around by an axe-wielding maniac. Rather, it was something far more disquieting and familiar. The fear of a wife who's experienced her husband at his worst, and is terrified that she'll experience it again. After starring as Olive Oyl in Popeye, which is just chef's kiss casting, Shelley became friends with her co-star, an up-and-coming comedian named Robin Williams. She had approached Robin with an idea for an adaptation of The Frog Prince, and after their mutual friend Eric Idle came on board, the project evolved into the pilot for a TV series, Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater. It got picked up by Showtime and it ran for 6 seasons. Shelley was the creator, executive producer, and host of this show, and this shit slaps. You can find some of the episodes on YouTube, and it's just so wholesome seeing all these celebrities dressing up and performing fairy tales for kids. You had The Frog Prince with Robin Williams, Terry Garr, and Michael Kramer Richards, and that's just episode 1. Later seasons included Beauty and the Beast with Susan Sarandon, Sleeping Beauty with Bernadette Peters, Three Little Pigs with Billy Crystal, Jeff Goldblum, and Fred Willard, and who could forget Pinocchio starring our boy, an esteemed member of the QueenCokeFrancis extended universe, Pee Wee Herman himself, Paul Rubens. If you're having a shitty day and need something innocent and gentle to cheer you up that isn't this video, definitely give this show a watch. Though I'd probably stay away from the episode where Mick Jagger appears in yellowface. Tisk tisk, Shelley. Be better, girl. Throughout the rest of the 1980s, Shelley appeared in short films like Booker and the one and only Ben Turton's Frankenweenie, because goddamn, if there's one thing Tim Burton's an expert in, it's finding charming women with big, beautiful eyes. Shelley shifted her focus to producing in the late 80s and early 90s, founding the production company Think Entertainment and producing shows like Nightmare Classics and Mother Goose Rock and Rhyme, the latter of which she also starred in as Little Bo Peep, and again, just chef's kiss casting. After releasing 2 albums featuring her singing lullabies and Christmas songs, good God, why couldn't this woman just adopt me? Shelley produced 2 more Showtime series, Shelley Duvall's Bedtime Stories, which earned her an Emmy nomination, and Mrs. Pigglewiggle, based on the children's books of the same name. Shelley sold Think Entertainment in 1993 and retired from producing. After playing several bit parts in film and TV throughout the 90s and early 2000s, Shelley finally retired from acting in 2002, a hiatus that would last 21 years. And she did what everyone in Los Angeles low-key wants to do: leave her fame, fortune, and 3-acre property behind and move back to her home state, where she finally led a quiet, mostly peaceful life, just enjoying its simple pleasures. From there, Shelley kept her personal life very quiet, and it seemed as though she was finally left alone. That is, until 2016, when a dude who actually hasn't been a licensed doctor in like 20 years decided it would be a really awesome idea to exploit Shelley on television and her apparent mental illness.
A star's descent into mental illness.
Where do you think he is?
Shape-shifting. I'm very sick. I need help.
Well, that's why I'm here.
The hell you are.
Get fucked!
There isn't a high-quality version of the full interview available for free because, God forbid, Phil McGraw lose a single cent of income. But I think this preview speaks for itself. Thankfully, the people did not fall for it and were not having it. Maybe when he gets old, he can shit his pants and someone can film it and put it on television and profit off of it. Anyway, Stanley Kubrick's daughter Vivian had this to say.
Dear Dr. Phil, you are putting Shelley Duvall on show while she is suffering from a pitiable state of ill health. Unquestionably, this is purely a form of lurid and exploitive entertainment. It's appallingly cruel. Shelley Duvall was a movie star. Whatever dignity a mere unfortunate creature might have in this world is denied her by your displaying her in this way. I recoil in complete disgust. I hope others will join me in boycotting your utterly heartless form of entertainment because it has nothing to do with compassionate healing. Sincerely disgusted, Vivian Kubrick.
Pop off, bitch. Shelley would return to acting one last time in 2022, joining an ensemble cast in the independent horror thriller The Forest Hills. She passed away on July 11th, 2024, due to complications from diabetes. As I mentioned in the beginning, Shelley's only crime was being a really nice person, even to the people who didn't deserve it at all. She never complained publicly about being openly mocked for her performance in The Shining or her Golden Raspberries nomination. And she didn't even give Dr. Phil a hard time after that horror show of an interview. The absolute worst she had to say about him was in 2021 in this interview with The Hollywood Reporter.
I found out the kind of person he is the hard way. My mother didn't like him either.
That's it. That's literally it. She had every right to be furious and criticize him for exploiting her and her condition, but she wasn't. She remained reserved and gentle as she always had. And she didn't have to be kind to Kubrick either, especially because to this day, all the Kubrick simps have latched onto her comments to be like, oh look, she said it was okay. It wasn't abuse. Leave our idol and his pedestal alone. Because to them, she wasn't a victim of Kubrick's misogyny or an equal collaborator. She was simply a tool for his art making in their eyes. And before you come after me for this, please keep in mind, this is coming from someone whose favorite movie of all time is A Clockwork Orange. Someone who was inspired to go to film school because of Stanley Kubrick. She was even nice to Paul Simon after he dumped her on New Year's Day at the airport right as she was boarding a flight to London to shoot The Shining. That sentence read like a John Mulaney joke in my head. I don't know why. And 9 years after that, she produced Mother Goose Rock and Rhyme for Disney Channel, where she worked with, you guessed it, Paul goddamn Simon. I think we can all agree that that's more than most of us would have done for an ex who ended the relationship that badly. At the risk of making yet another Fallout reference in my videos, sorry not sorry, Shelley really was a real-life Lucy McLean.
Golden rule, motherfucker.
Okay guys, hear me out on this. We're in an alternate universe. The year is 1979 and a Fallout TV show is being produced. It stars Shelley as Lucy, a baby Denzel Washington as Maximus, and, wait for it, Charlton Heston as the Ghoul. I'd be gagged. Anyway, thank you all for taking the time to honor this amazing woman with me, and I hope you'll all forgive me for my very poor taste joke in that other video. But I'd also like to take the time to honor something else. The winning comments from the last video. Little Mr. Scarall says, this cured my joint pain, did my top and bottom surgery, then replenished my iron levels with the sheer beauty of this Yowie harvest. Hertzberg says, petition to gaslight Francis into thinking everything is a reference to something so he lives the rest of his life paranoid. And finally, Marine Biohorror 458 says, a second conservative cartoon has hit the towers, Mr. President. You guys are so much funnier than I am. What the fuck? You too can be featured in the next video. Leave a comment below. I will pick my favorite ones and give you a shout out next time. Now I might not pin it to the top of the comments section, only because sometimes I have to reserve the pinned comments for artist recognition. Apologies and or corrections on my part. Too damn many winning comments like these. However, if you would like to guarantee that your name is mentioned at the end of every video, please consider joining my Patreon, because if you do, your name will be mentioned at the end of every future video. I'm currently working on more donor rewards and seeing what's exactly possible on my end, time and budget-wise. But if you love my videos and my drag, you can support this channel directly by clicking the link to my Patreon in the description box. If you would like to see me simp for my favorite game characters and get visibly frustrated in real time, please follow me and my beautiful co-producer Mitchell on Twitch. I stream most Sunday afternoons Pacific Standard Time, and we are still raising money for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. If you would like to see even more of my clown mug elsewhere, please consider following me on Instagram or TikTok. My handle for all of the above is @QueenCokeFrancis. If you enjoyed this video, video and you haven't done so already, please get cast in a big budget horror film. When your director yells at you for not giving him what he wants after 127 takes, instead of taking any more of his macho bullshit, just whack him over the head with a baseball bat, then stand over him and unzip your pants and dick slap those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. Thank you so much to everyone who has helped this channel grow and thrive, and of course, as always, until next time,